this evening. I'm Josh Swanson, Superintendent of Schools, and this has been a really, really fun process to be able to engage with community over the last 8 or 9, 10 months now as we think about our next 10 years and what that might look like in terms of our academic vision. We've had thousands of people from the community involved in this process at this point to be able to learn together, provide input and feedback through that process. And we've had a design team of teachers and some parents and community members who have then been taking all of that feedback and input and starting to work to craft our design. And I've told them all the way along, you're designing for feedback again. We're designing for iteration. And so tonight, after we learn a little bit together, we're going to break out into some groups and we're going to be asking for some feedback that's going to go back to the design team as they continue to evolve that. I want to introduce Denise Montrelli, who's right here off to the side. She's one of our facilitators tonight, working with us, and I don't know where Julie Kritz went. I think she might be outside supporting some other folks, but they're going to be up here in just a little bit giving some directions around next steps. But I wanted to spend a few minutes grounding us in this space together before we bring up our speaker and do some learning and engagement with artificial intelligence and what that might look like inside of our future. So, as superintendent, I've been here in the district. It's my 8th year as superintendent, just finishing that up. It's my 13th year in the district. I'm superintendent, but I'm also a parent. So you may see my 9th grade son waddle in here sometime. He's coming back from a JV tennis match. I have a senior who is graduating this year and off to her next adventure. Live in the community and just deeply rooted in care for what we're doing. And I appreciate the thoughtful approach our community always takes towards really thinking about what's in the best interest of our kids so that they thrive in their context. And so as we think about this academic design, we're really thinking about what are the types of experiences our students, our kids, need to have in 2035 so they can thrive in their context. Not ours, that we had 10 years or 20 years or 40 years before, or even now, but 10 years into the future. And so this process is designed to get us there. So I want to just talk a little bit for grounding of the process. We started this, as I referenced, almost 8, 9, 10 months ago. In the summer, we conducted a random sample community survey to hear from our community and be able to say, this is the general pulse about what people are thinking about the future and what school and education might need to look like. We use that information from our community, from both our whole community and from our parents, to start to shape the process this fall to gather information. We met with every single school and department and staff members at Opportunities, our teachers, our support staff, our bus drivers, food service administrators, all had chances to provide input as to what that might look like. We met with students at the elementary, middle school, and high school. I had a chance to facilitate some of those groups. It was absolutely fantastic to hear from our kids. We held several speaker series, kind of like we are tonight, where we got to learn together as a community and then have conversations based on that information to help provide feedback and input in that design process. We met with our business partners, and I use business partners in our for-profits, our not-for-profits, our different agencies, our different entities, higher education, that work with us here in the community and have a vested interest. And we offered some survey information to be able to bring things in. The design team met in February, and they took all of that input for thousands of people, thousands of data points, and ironically, our topic tonight's AI. They used AI quite a bit to go through and try to parse that data and understand it, but they had all the raw data so they could go back and forth and look and see what AI was telling them, what they were seeing, how to formulate that. And out of that work, they designed 4 key things that they identified that should be in place in every student experience, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. And then we got some more feedback about that, and they evolved that, and they started to work on some program design. Tonight's going to be the first night we're kind of rolling out some of the programmatic concepts, and those are the things we're going to be asking for feedback later from you. So let's talk that vision of student experience. When they talked about student experience and what that vision should be, The design team came up with this simple statement: each student experiences well-being, engages in inspired learning, develops transferable future-ready skills, and applies their knowledge in real-world situations. So I just want to unpack each of those really quickly. So as we talk about that vision, we talk about student well-being. They talk about adaptability and resilience. They talk about physical, social, emotional, mental well-being, but all in the context of understanding, like, the human experience is not perfect all the time. Like, we have ups and we have downs, but if our students are gonna thrive in this environment in 10 years from now, they're gonna have to be resilient. They're gonna have to be able to move through those times of good or bad and figure out how to recenter and how to navigate those pieces. They talk about inspired learning. As we think about inspired learning, we talk about the concept of discovery, exploration, and pursuit. How do I find out about things I don't know anything about? How do I go a little deeper with something maybe where I have some curiosity, and then something where I'm starting to be passionate about? How do I really pursue in that space and go really deep and make a difference? The design team, based on input from the community, said we've got to have future-ready skills. For quite a while during my tenure here in the district, we've been talking about the 4 C's. We talk about how our students need to learn how to collaborate and think critically. They need to be able to communicate their ideas. They need to be able to think creatively through problem solving and look at things in different ways. Our future-ready skills, as that team talked about it, are those 4 C's plus, I like to say. It's that and some other things that our students need to be able to do that are transferable between context areas, between subject areas, between skills, and they need to do that with technological fluency. If they're going to thrive in the year 2035 and into their futures, they need to have that as a part of that as well, based on community input and the work of the design team. And finally, that student experience should have real-world application. It's not just about our students learning about something, they're learning to do something with it. And so it goes past just knowledge, it goes into application. How am I going to take what I'm learning and actually take and do something meaningful in that space? So that student experience, those 4 elements, we want to see in every design that comes forward for programs as we think about that academic vision going 10 years into the future. So the design team has started to put together a design blueprint. It's not a finished product. Tonight you're going to give feedback around some of those conceptual ideas around programs that they think might get us closer to seeing that vision, that experiential vision in place for each of our students 10 years out from now. And so we're going to be moving towards that. Tonight, you are going to get to hear from an expert in the field of artificial intelligence and what that might look like in the educational space. But he also has a lot of background on what that looks like in the business world and with other nonprofits and higher education, and how that might impact our world, and particularly the world of our kids and our students as we think into the future. So I'm really excited to introduce him in just a moment. After the presentation, we're going to do just a little bit of grounding to be able to move into some breakout groups and receive that feedback around some of the programmatic concepts. Your feedback's all going to go back to that design team that meets in a couple of weeks to be able to evolve those programmatic concepts as we work towards finalizing our Flight Plan 2035 academic vision for 10 years into the future towards the end of this school year. So with that, I am going to introduce our speaker tonight. He got to spend a little bit of time with our design team members, some of our design team members this afternoon, some of our other staff and leaders. Abran Maldonado is here. I got to actually go over to Tavern 4 and 5 and share a little local Eden Prairie cuisine with him right before this too, so we got to chat a little bit, which is really fun to get to know him. He is a Gates Scholar. He was a former educator. He's been working in startup and ed tech. He's been speaking not only all over the United States, but all over the world. People seek out his expertise in artificial intelligence and what that looks like in the world, because he had a unique opportunity to be in with OpenAI, really on the ground floor as an ambassador, working with them even pre this thing, ChatGPT, that 2.5 years ago we didn't even know about. And he was working with them early on and seeing how this has evolved. So I'm really excited to welcome him to the stage, to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, share some information and some ideas with us. He'll push your thinking a little bit, but hopefully we'll all learn together. And then when we're done tonight in our breakout sessions, I'm going to ask you to think about his content that he's sharing and how that might fit in with some of the programmatic design concepts that our design team has put forward. So I just want to welcome you to the space here. Thank you for being here this evening. Thanks for those people online as well. This is being live streamed, and so I know we have quite a number of people on the live stream as well. So glad you're here with us. You'll have an opportunity to provide some feedback a little later as well. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Maldonado.
So I'm going to leave it plugged in while we mess around with this stuff, and then we'll get to a point where hopefully it comes up, but I think we should keep it pushing anyway. Because a lot of stuff is more conversation, and in the meantime, if we did have a laptop that worked, then let's bring that laptop back, and then I can pull up the Canva from that one. It's just a Canva. But in the meantime, I'll run the conversation. You keep it pushing. So, hi everybody. This is par for the course, right? On a conversation about technology. I was in a theater just like this in Brooklyn, and there were these little holes. There was like 4 people inside these holes trying to rip admin lines, because in the school district, everything was blocking AI. Yeah, give it a try, pull up a Chrome, and I'll open up Canva from there. Everything was blocking AI in a building that they had me talk about AI in. So the irony behind that. But that happens very often. I gave a talk last week to a group at John Jay College in Manhattan, and the leader pulled me over and he was like, yeah, we're still not allowed to use AI. Can you come and talk to the legal and general counsel about, letting them lower these restrictions? So, we're in a weird world right now, because I'm trying to convince you all that we have to use this. I'm trying to convince your supervisors that you have to use this. And we're still in this space where we're slightly afraid of it. Our bosses are afraid of it, the school districts even. I built a product for MasterCard this year. The first AI product for them, supporting small businesses. They saw me on stage and they said, hey, that thing that you said on stage, can you do that for us, but as a small business AI to coach and mentor young people, and people of all ages really, on how to start a small business? I said, absolutely, let's get started. It's a great use case, supporting underserved small businesses with AI. They said, we're not allowed to have AI at MasterCard, so you have to host it. So, you want me to build you a product that we give to the public that you are not even allowed to have in your own building to touch your ecosystem. So I am currently, to this day, hosting that product for MasterCard. And they asked me to take out an astronomical insurance policy, what they call a cyber policy, to make sure that thing doesn't, what they call hallucinate. Who's heard the word hallucinate before? Right? You've all heard that term, don't quite know what it means. Hallucinations is because the AI is a people pleaser. The AI will never tell you, I don't know. It will fill in the blank. It wants to please you. So it's going to give you the answer whether it's right or not. And the goal is to guide it to make sure that it's giving us accurate information, but it doesn't always do that. That is the scary part of AI. It is generative, it is uncertain, and it wants to give you information. It's not like Siri or Alexa. Siri and Alexa are what they call conversation trees. So a conversation tree has a list of answers on that tree. If you ask this, I give you this answer. Boom. If you ask a question that doesn't have a pre-populated answer on the screen, I'm going to say, I don't know, I can't help you. ChatGPT won't do that. ChatGPT says, well, here's the answer. I don't care if it's right or wrong, but here's an answer. So once we get all this figured out, I'm going to show you, we can skip my background. I think we've covered enough of that, but he touched on that point. I am a former educator. I'm a former PhD, education researcher, and there was this moment during the pandemic where everyone was online. We're all home. And I'm studying, I'm browsing Twitter, and I'm on TikTok, and I come across this paper on what they called GPT-2. And it said, GPT-2 deemed too unsafe for the public. AI, too unsafe, and they didn't release it. I was like, what is this? I grew up as a Star Wars geek, as a Marvel geek. If there's any AI that's too dangerous for the public, I want to know about it, and I want in. And just on Twitter, I was like, you know what? I'm doing a lot of social impact work with education, trying to train people to come up into the world of just technology. I was helping a lot of coding boot camps, if you're familiar with like coding boot camps, ways for people to get certifications in coding to get jobs in the software world. And I was doing a lot of that boots on the ground work. And I was like, I would love to get access to something like this to see how it can help the education space. And one day I had a DM, private message on Twitter, and I opened it, and it is the co-founders of OpenAI, Greg Brockman. And he said, hey, shoot me your email, I want to give you access to this thing that we're working on. And I was like, great, I don't know what it is, but I'm in. And they're like, well, you have to sign a bunch of NDAs, and we're gonna give you access to this thing called GPT-3. And the first thing I did was test it for education use cases. I started having conversations with it about diversity, bias, racial injustice, because these are all the things that I cared about deeply. And back in the early days, you weren't allowed to just use ChatGPT for whatever you wanted. You had to submit a proposal to OpenAI and said, hey, this is the use case that I came up with GPT, and I'd like to produce this demo. So the first thing I made was a police encounters, a legal rights AI, to let people know if you are in an encounter, whether it's a student protest or a police encounter, this is how you should navigate the situation. These are your rights. And it was an AI that can help people in those really scary situations. And it had to get approved or declined. So OpenAI reached out and said, we're gonna decline this because it's life or death. And if it gives the wrong information and hallucinates, someone could die, right? It could be a really bad situation. But we like how you think and how you're approaching this tool that we're calling GPT, because no one else is really exploring it for these high risk situations, education situations, diversity representation situations. So do you want to be an ambassador? And of course I said yes, without knowing what it meant. And he said, well, you're going to be one of like 5 or 6 people here at the organization that are going to be testing all the models before they're released. And if anyone needs help, we'll give them your contact information, and you can help a lot of people out. I met people from all over the world reaching out to me saying, how does GPT work? And I would spend my time, me and these other what we call prompt engineers, if you've heard that term, helping people all around the world figure out how to use GPT. And then one day they said, hey, test out this chat interface. Let us know what you think. We might come up with a chat product. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm testing it, and I'm like, it's GPT, but it's in a chat window. Like, I don't get what the difference is. Maybe it's more conversational. And sure enough, that November, it became ChatGPT. And who knew that just changing the interface of GPT and calling it ChatGPT would break the internet and become what it is today. But in those early days, we were testing the first time that you can code with AI called Codex, where it was generating lines of code. DALL-E 1 was the first AI-generated picture, and I was generating those early, images. And back then, it looked like scribble, and we were losing our minds. We were like, oh my God, the AI is scribbling. Look at it now, fast forward, and now we see what's possible with AI imagery. But I was screaming from the mountaintops back then in 2020. This is the summer of 2020. ChatGPT didn't come out till 2023. That this was going to change the world, and I had a moment where I'm having software engineers from all over the world come to me, and they're like, "What's that line? What's the command to get the thing to do what you want it to do?" And I'm like, "What command? Have you tried talking to the machine?" They're like, "What do you mean talking to the machine?" I'm like, "Just communicate with it." And I was like, "Oh." you guys don't know how to communicate. I'm a former educator. This feels very natural to me. And I'm like, oh, educators. So if anyone here who's an educator, was an English major, was a humanities major, you're back. Like, this is your moment now, because at first we thought it was just algorithms, ones and zeros. If I explain to you a process, we're like, all right, I'm gonna teach you a new concept. I'm gonna show you some examples. I'm gonna show you what good looks like, right? An example remodel. And we're gonna do it together. And when you get it wrong, I'm gonna give you some feedback to help guide you to get it right. And then when I feel like I can trust you, then I'm gonna pull back and let you do it independently. What does that sound like to you? Parenting, teaching. That's prompt engineering. That is how you work with these models. So if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're a counselor, you know how to prompt engineer. It is going to be very natural to you, because nowadays, and Mark Zuckerberg just said it this week, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA said it in a recent keynote, the more advanced these systems get, the less coding is involved. The more communication skills are going to be involved. And the more you need to learn how to navigate, how to give it detailed instructions. So for the kids in the room, you have to learn how to write detailed sentences that are articulating what you want. Knowing how to explain what you want a computer to do is going to be the skill set of the future. And it's not coding. It is exactly that, what I just described. Any luck? Okay. All right, no worries. You're good. I'm having a good time. So, what I'm describing to you all is this new process where at first prompt engineering sounded like a really obscure term, and out of nowhere Netflix and other companies were paying up to $900,000 a year for this role of prompt engineer. Before there was even a master's or bachelor's degree that you could even get in what's called prompt engineering. That's how fast this was moving in the industry. That they're paying almost $1 million for a role that has existed for less than 2 years. And now we're at a point where that's even evolving. I just saw an article yesterday that was like, is prompt engineering obsolete? Is it done? And I checked in with my OpenAI friends. I'm like, what do you think about prompt engineering being done? They're like, there's no way. Like, the key to the future is how you communicate with these machines. Who's ever seen Star Wars? Who knows C-3PO, right? Who's seen a Marvel movie with Tony Stark? Who is his AI? Who's Tony Stark's AI? Anyone know? Jarvis, right? So, does anyone see Tony Stark coding to talk to Jarvis? How does he talk to Jarvis? He speaks, he talks, right? He's having a conversation with an AI that is going to do the heavy lifting for him. So when Elon Musk or Figure or Boston Dynamics makes it cheaper enough to have a humanoid robot in all of our homes, do we all need to learn how to code to operate those robots? No. It's going to be a communication interface where you have a conversation with the machine. Now, when that gets worked out, what we're trying to figure out is showing you this evolution of what's called vibe coding. Now, vibe coding is exactly what it sounds like. If any of the educators in the room, any marathon runners in the room, anyone that's ever done a half or full, right? What is the state of flow? Anyone heard that term before, the state of flow? Or the runner's high, right? You get past those hard miles in the beginning, and then after a while, it feels good, right? After a while, it starts to feel good, and then it's like time's passing, you just mile after mile after mile, right? Software engineers get into this space, writers get into this space, anyone who's really committing themselves to an activity gets into this space where like, you know what? I'm in this deep, deep moment of flow. People who write about play, right? The state of play, the state of flow, very similar. So you're in this flow with the chatbot, ChatGPT, same thing, right? You're there for hours just talking with it, going back and forth, and you're getting somewhere, and you're like breaking ground on a new idea. That is the new coding. Because what these systems now are capable of doing is doing a task on your behalf or creating something on your behalf, and all you're doing is guiding it with your feedback. And the conversation is like, we did this earlier today, in that earlier afternoon session, where there was a track coach in the room, and I said, okay, who has an idea for an app? The track coach raised his hand, and I was like, tell me your idea. He's like, I want a video-based app that I can pull out that can time races and time my athletes to get more, instead of laser, video-based accurate timing for their performance, to help them work on their speed and their performance. That one sentence is what I took that I entered into the system to generate his app. And 10 minutes later, his app was me. And I said, okay, look, from your one sentence, we have the starting of your app. And I said, all right, for the next 10 minutes, dive in, keep going with this app. He raised his hand 10 minutes later. He said, I have the video working, the feed. I walked over to his laptop. He actually had the video feed, watching his races, recording the race times, and tracking the times in 10 minutes. So now, what could you do if you were sitting at that computer for 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, a weekend? Have any of you binged the Netflix show? Right? About 12 episodes, 12 hours over a weekend. What if you committed those same 12 hours to building that same app? Where would you be at the end of the weekend? Yes? Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. And sound is coming from that too? Add another account. Let's do it. All right, it's a good time while I do this. Does anyone have any questions while I do this? I can multitask, I swear. Go for it.
Okay, so you talked about this a little bit, but there's a lot going on with both AI and just social media in general. The kind of the feedback loops of where you engage with one content and it continues to show that same content, and then people kind of get stuck down a rabbit hole of confirmation bias. And when I was growing up in school, research in books, not on the internet, weren't allowed to use Wikipedia was coming up and an interest in it. And so how do we ensure that our kids are ethical and responsible using this ChatGPT and all these things, don't get down the rabbit hole and that's where
I mean, the same could be said about social media right now, because social media is an echo chamber that is only showing people what they want to see via algorithms, right? So that is a problem that's bigger than AI, to be honest. It's something that we have to tackle as a community to figure out, you know, how do we be okay with people with different ideas, and talking to each other as a community and being okay with, you know, people who have different thoughts. So what I worry about with language models though, and I did talk about this earlier today, is that there is going to be a moment, well, we're in that moment right now, where, I don't know, it's kind of becoming like, are you using the CNN or the Fox News of language models, right? Like Grok 3, which is Elon Musk's language model, is intentionally training out DEI, LGBT, out of their models, right? And then the Chinese model, DeepSeek, people have claimed to run into censorship in that model when they bring up things like Tiananmen Square or things in Chinese history. Then it's just like, I'm sorry, I won't answer that. So then Perplexity came out with an uncensored US version of DeepSeek to remove some of those filters. So now we have to be more thoughtful in the AIs that we use, especially when they're generic one-size-fits-all AIs for everyone. But the way around it is to also just make your own, or make one, and you gotta be more guided in how you ask questions. But I also have another approach that I use that I share is called the Core 4. Right now, there's 4 main AIs, and feel free to write this down. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini. Whenever I use AI for anything, especially when it's like brainstorming or having a conversation, I have all four open at the same time. I've yet to get to a point, and the industry has yet to get to a point where it's okay to just use one over all the others. Because they're constantly trying to outdo each other. They're always working in a space where as soon as ChatGPT comes out with an update, tomorrow Perplexity comes out with an update. The next day Gemini comes out with an update. And then Claude comes out with an update. Because they're all in the same market, they all want your attention. But they all have something a little different to offer because they're all trained to one-up each other. So one project, you might find that ChatGPT is the winner. Another project, you might find that Gemini is the winner, or Claude is the winner. So we're still in an ecosystem where if you walk away with anything today, whether this technology works or not, make sure that you are using all four, assessing their responses, and then coming to your own conclusion with your own critical thinking and your own discernment and judgment of like, do I believe what I received from these four? And was I thorough enough in this fact-based research? And the other thing too, let's talk about research because that's an important step and milestone that's happening in AI right now. Every one of these tools that I just laid out has a feature now called deep research. Less than a year ago, all of these models were offline. And you're like, no, I use them online. What do you mean they're offline? Their data was an offline timestamped data set. Right, so when you use GPT-4, the data was only up until 2023. Even if you're using it in 2024, the data was only from the beginning of 2020 to 2023. So if you ask that a current events question, it will give you an answer, but it's wrong because it has no idea what happened yesterday. It only knows up until 2023. Perplexity came out and said, you know what? People need web search with their AI. So Perplexity was the first to come out with a web search based on what they call browse-enabled, internet-connected web search with AI. Okay, cool. Gemini was like, you know what? You're coming for our lunch over here at Google, so that means that we need to come out with a web search-based AI. And then ChatGPT said, you know what? Now we have a search function. They all copycat each other when they all see, okay, someone kind of beat us to the punch with this feature. But that's just a 10. You know, you pull up, you do a Google search, you have 10 results, you summarize those results, and that's basically it. I mean, no different than your own behavior. What they found was, okay, the agent and reasoning and thought process that we have behind the model can do more, right? So let's do what's called deep research. So that took it from just browsing maybe like 10 websites to now dozens, hundreds, thousands of links on your behalf. And that is very powerful, people. I don't think you understand. Any question that you have of the world can be researched at your fingertip. And you don't have to take any time to sit there down this rabbit hole by yourself for hours on a time trying to search these search results over pages and pages of Google. You can walk away and get your time back. So the AI will say, let me ask you some follow-up questions. What kind of information do you want? Do you want it in this format? You know, do you want anything that's specific? And you say yes, yes, and yes. Okay, I'm gonna go start looking for this stuff. You can walk away from the computer. So now you can walk away and do something outside while it's spending the next half hour doing your research for you. And then you come back and you say, okay, this is good. Is that good? All right. Is this clicker activated? Oh, hey. All right. All right, so we're business folks. So a lot of stuff I can skip, obviously. But so deep research now has attribution and citations. So now you can, okay, you're not making up the answer because I see the links to where you got the answer from. And you're also giving me the list of sources from where you got this answer. So now I can validate and vet the truth behind this answer, but I'm still going to use all four. Because now all four still have this deep research function. And now I see, okay, the ChatGPT research prompts, search 47 links. Gemini searched 300. Perplexity searched 180. Were they all the same links? Probably not. So now across all that, you have about 500 different links that now you have to synthesize your answer across these tools. All right, so now let's lightning round all of this. All right, yes, former educator, cool stuff. That's me and AI. I'm going back. Next week, I do, like he said, I do this around the world. This is me headlining AI Week in Milan in Italy. Going back next week, should be a lot of fun. That's when my wife sneaks into my luggage and she's like, I'm coming with you. So now I run Create Labs. So I took all the knowledge that I gained from working with OpenAI, and I start to see that there was this organic flow of I go on stage because I have these communication skills, being a former educator, being a former public speaker. A couple of AI agencies reached out and said, hey, we want to put you back on stage, especially in front of educators because you know what you're talking about, and you know the dual language of being an educator, knowing what they have to deal with, and also being a speaker on the AI front. But then I get off stage, and then companies will come to me, enterprise to startups, foundations with grants, saying, hey, we have an idea, can you build it for us, right? Can you execute on this vision for us? Is there a tool out there that does it, or do we need to do something custom with you? Usually it's the latter. So I started a business around doing that custom consulting to help build everyone's GPT in the way that they envisioned it. Just some of the organizations I do a lot. I've done AASA, I've headlined ISTE and AESA, speak to a lot of superintendents, working with a lot of school districts around the country that want to start AI innovation academies, want to overhaul their professional development, bring in AI hubs. I like the idea of giving teachers, one superintendent here in Minnesota is giving teachers an extra PD session, well not a PD session, prep period, to work on AI every week, solely focused on R&D AI. In addition to that, I think a big opportunity in education is for all the neurodivergent learners out there, 504s and IEPs, you know, students need a lot of accommodations. Sometimes it's a lot of a lift to have a teacher by hand differentiate that curriculum that they get in like August, September to modify that for every student. The AI can do it in seconds, right? Now, the marriage there is that you do have to give it the student needs. You don't have to give them the student name, you don't have to give the PII, but you say this student X or anonymized number, or just remove the student's name, say this student needs these accommodations. Please return back to me the whole curriculum for the entire year with these accommodations, and it does it in seconds. It's a big opportunity that you can do right from ChatGPT. As I mentioned, I built MasterCard Small Business AI. It's a great tool for any of you who are in the small business world. Any small business owners here in the room? I know they said that there was going to be a mix. If you have an idea for a business, right? If you want to start a business, this is a great place to start because it's going to really help you validate that idea. It's going to give you homework and challenge you to really help you think about, is the idea really worth starting up? And then once you take these ideas, then you can take some of the homework that it gives you and then put that into deep research in ChatGPT to help you with that market research. But it's a great starting point if you're trying to start a small business. I didn't mention Clara. So as that Star Wars geek and as that person that I am, the Marvel geek, I was like, you know what? Tony Stark has his Jarvis, I need my Jarvis, right? But I wanted to make an embodiment of the people in my community, the women that I grew up with, my mom. Is that for me? Oh. Okay. Okay, all right, cool, no problem. Maybe use a thicker Sharpie. I was like, what does that say? And what I found is that she struck a chord with the community. It was like, you know, there was a lot of young girls that were like scared of AI, but then when they saw Clara, they're like, oh, she was like my mom or my sister or my cousin. And there was a moment that we had there with Clara that I was like, oh, everyone has ChatGPT, they're not gonna care about Clara. It was the exact opposite. Google, Amazon, a lot of companies call, they're like, hey, we're doing a girls STEM day or a girls tech day. We have, not you, but we want Clara to come and speak. So now me and Clara take turns traveling the world and speaking. And she's great, and she's always now an ambassador for our team, and she always will be and play a certain role. She's not a product, she's her own person. We'll hear a few words from her. Let's see if the sound works.
My perspective, like any tool, the impact of AI depends on how we wield it. We can channel AI's potential to address pressing global issues such as climate change, healthcare, and education, making significant strides towards a better world. Open dialogue, ethical guidelines, and inclusive policies can guide AI development positively. By involving diverse voices in this conversation, we ensure AI evolves not as a force to fear, but as a partner for positive change.
So as you can see, MasterCard was a big fan of her and asked her to come out and speak as well. But she's actually why I got the MasterCard deal. I was on stage in Harlem speaking with Clara, and I was getting off stage and MasterCard said, hey, we love Clara, we love what you're doing around diversity and inclusion and non-biased AI. Can you do that for us, but for small business? And I said, absolutely, and then the rest is history. But digital humans is, you know, a Black Mirror-esque kind of space that we're in now, where that we specialize in. We know how to specialize in making digital humans. And that opens up a lot of opportunities. A mayor in Portugal reached out and said, hey, can you make a digital twin of me so that all the constituents of my community can have access to me 24/7. They don't have to wait for a town hall. They don't have to wait for me to be on the campaign trail. If there's anything going on in the world that my people in my community want to ask questions of me, they can talk to my avatar. And we train that avatar on his likeness, his voice, his accent, and all of the services within the city of Braga in Portugal to feed this avatar. And it's been a great project. And it sets the tone for what's possible with other communities. But think about with education, what you could do with this. I can bring back not only tutors, but historical figures that you might want to interact with your students. Museums as well. There's a lot of great opportunity here.
Hi to everyone in Eden Prairie. My name is Dana, and I'm honored to be here with Ubron to welcome you to this exciting chapter in our journey as a future-ready community. As we enter this new era shaped by artificial intelligence, the key to staying at the cutting edge isn't just about using the latest tools. It's about building a culture that's curious, creative, and courageous. That means students exploring how AI can solve real-world problems, teachers co-creating lessons with smart agents, and families learning how to navigate this technology safely and responsibly. AI isn't here to replace us. It's here to amplify us. So stay bold, stay open, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The future is being written right here, and I'm so proud to be a part of your story.
So that beautiful avatar is my wife. My team approached my wife and they're like, how do you feel about being an avatar with your husband and doing some courses with him? So my wife's name is Diana. That's Dana, her avatar twin, that you'll see featured in some of the courses that I create as my course assistant. But that just shows you the capability, the fidelity, and the quality of like where we are now with creating digital humans. And the way that I processed that video is I had a GPT going on my talk here at Eden Prairie, where I'm doing some research on AI initiatives here and what you all need. And then I asked it, okay, before I go on stage, write a script greeting the audience and letting them know your thoughts on how Eden Prairie can move forward with AI. And I gave the script to the avatar, and that's what you heard. And it's that simple. I did that in the hotel room on my way over here. So we touched a lot of points, and I jump around a lot because there's a lot to cover. But let's get you the skill set that you need to move forward so that you don't feel overwhelmed and intimidated by these technologies. Because I want you to feel equipped and prepared. And like I mentioned with those communication skills, it's not as hard as you think. But we were here before. We were here 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago with calculators. They actually protested the use of calculators in school, and they thought it was the end of education. We ended up just fine. But we learned a few things. We learned that calculators serve a specific time and place in the classroom. There are moments where we want you to do something by hand because we want you to have the muscle memory to develop the skill to do this task. And there's other times where maybe the problem or the task is bigger than we can do by hand, so we pull in the calculator. This is a calculator moment for text. This is a calculator moment for language. And there will be moments where I want you to write out something, an essay, a brainstorm, an outline, a draft by hand, just to develop the ability to draft an idea and to bring some thought together. But then beyond that, there will be opportunities where the problem is bigger than the classroom. If I ask you to come up with a solution for climate change as an educator, I don't care what AI you use to help get to that solution, because the solution to climate change is more important than if you did it by hand or not. So you have to think about and use your own discernment as an educator and as a parent, because my kids ask me all the time, like, please, it's just a word jumble. Can I please use ChatGPT? And sometimes if I know that they've done it right and they know the words, I'm like, fine, go ahead, cool, let's go get ice cream. And other times I'm like, no, this is a moment where you have to do it by hand. So as a parent, as a teacher, there's a lot of different ways where you have to navigate when it's appropriate in the classroom. But this is what we're all afraid of. Who remembers, a special prize to anyone who remembers this movie? This is a throwback 80s movie where kids, it was like, you know what, I'm not going to class, I'm just going to drop off my boombox, hit record, and at some point, the teacher was like, you know what, I'm out too. And then, but you know what? To be honest, this is almost getting to where we are now, right? This is kind of like a snapshot of like, all right, well, if you're just gonna have your GPTs in the classroom, then I'm gonna have my GPTs talk to your GPTs, your avatars talking to my avatars, so that we can all be outside doing something else, right? And we talked about this earlier, where like digital humans, like Clara, or Dana, my wife's name is Diana, the avatar is Dana, like Dana. We're all gonna have a Dana, we're all gonna have a Clara working on our behalf. What opportunity does that give us, right? To be outside and check back and say, hey Clara, what did you do while I was gone? Oh, I checked these emails for you, I wrote up these proposals, I did this research, you know, I made this spreadsheet. Your inbox is at 0, everything's done. Did you have fun outside? What did you do? And this is where we're gonna be. Everyone's thinking about, oh, robots. Before we get robots, we're all gonna have digital assistants working on our behalf, these agents. And we're so afraid of it, but think of that opportunity that gives you to be outside. And when I go to a conference, when I go and speak on the road, I go back to a full inbox. I'm like, oh man, all these emails that I didn't check because I was on the road. Now that doesn't have to be the case. But we were warned. We were here with the 4 C's, right? We talked about the 4 C's. 15 years ago, we talked about the 4 C's. This book came out, and think tanks came out called like the Partnership for 21st Century Skills. And they didn't even call it AI. They just called it automation. They called it technology. They called it the future. And they said, at some point, we will get to a point where your kids will work jobs that don't exist yet. That was the scare tactic that they gave us. And they said, you know what? That's actually true, and that's actually even more true today. I couldn't even predict what my 10-year-olds will do 15 years from now in the workforce because of the way things are going with AI and automation. But if we stuck to the 4 C's, then we'd be okay, right? And this was the first snapshot of that. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication. All that showed us that like if you stay adaptable, if you stay as a deep thinker, critical thinker, if you know how to collaborate with others around the world. I have a team of a couple dozen, about 25, 30 people on my team. I've only met half of my team in real life. I've been working with these people for 7, 8 years. I have not met them in real life. I've met them on Zoom, I've met them on Discord, I've met them on Slack, over email, Trello, Jira, never in real life. And we're doing just fine as a company. So get ready for that future. The young people are getting to that space where they're going to be having to work in a world where you don't even know if the person on the other side is real or not. And they're the avatar generation. Gen Alpha, Gen Z, that's the avatar generation. Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, right? They feel very comfortable talking to NPCs. What's an NPC? Just from the young people, yes sir?
An NPC is a robot that is not a real person.
Okay. Now, can the NPC talk back to you?
No.
Okay. we're all gonna get to a point where you can have a full conversation with an NPC, and it can help you with any daily task. Homework. Who wants an NPC for homework? To help them with homework? I know you do, right? You get stuck in Minecraft, you get stuck in Roblox, don't you want a little assistant that's gonna help you get out of that stage or help you find the clue? Thumbs up. Good, I got a thumbs up in the back of the room. So these skills, written also by Levy and Murnane, the new division of labor, where some of the core skills that might be touched on in the 4 C's, complex communication. What does that mean? Well, not everything can be scripted in code when it comes to communication, when it comes to problem solving, right? How do you solve problems that don't have a script? We can do that because we know how to plan B, right? Contingency plans, think on our feet. That's gonna be a life skill we're gonna have to thrive on. Complex communication. How do I know how to communicate with a room of multiple people? Navigating eye contact, seeing body language, seeing if people are bored, if I need to change the subject, if I need to raise the volume, if I've upset people by something that I've said. All that is happening in real time in the back of my head as I'm delivering sentences. That's still not something that an AI is going to be able to replicate. You know, that's something that we're going to learn, that we need to actually improve, because as the more the AI is doing, we're going to have more face-to-face time, social interactions, when we step away from our computer because the AI is handling everything in front of the computer. But I've added 1/5 C to that, culture. No one knows culture better than us because we live it every day. And that's one thing that we have to train into the AIs. And the AIs can't make up on their own. Arts and creativity and culture, it solely relies on our ability to feed it that information if it's going to generate something with it. When I travel to Milan next week, when I go to Qatar in the UAE, I always tell them, why would you wait on kids in Silicon Valley to make an AI that represents your culture in Italy when you could do it better than them right here at your own home country? Because you know your culture better than anyone. Why would you wait on them to represent you? Don't, just go make your own. I say the same thing. I'm going to Africa in June. I'm going to say the same thing there, where make your own GPTs. Don't wait on one sole entity, one sole organization to represent all cultures. Now, agents. So we know what a ChatGPT is. You're communicating with interacting with a chatbot. But what happens when you communicate with that chatbot and then it turns around and does something on your behalf for you, right? That's the autonomy that's coming in the world. The agentic workflows. There's agents that you build, and then there's agentic workflows that automate our processes in the world. Anyone here work in IT? So soon they're saying about your job. At some point, your job is going to convert to managing a swarm of agents. Have you heard that yet?
Do you know Cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, we use Cursor.
So if you're making agents or if you're using Cursor, I've seen completely agentic org charts, right? Where, like, let's say there's like 10 different departments within a district, right? You have talent acquisition, you have purchasing, you have food, you have curriculum and instruction, and there's an agent per department, right? They're saying your job is going to be managing those agents to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're managing a swarm of bots, right? That is the reality. That's something that is coming, to make sure that you're what they call the human in the loop. And you're that singular human in the loop, working with dozens, if not hundreds, of AIs, all performing a different task on your behalf. Now, they've already made platforms where you can do this on your own with no code. Drag and drop. You need the creativity to think, okay, well, if I connect my Gmail to my Slack and my phone SMS messages and the learning management system and, let's see, all right, connected to Google Classroom, then in one fluid step, I can get a communication from a parent via email. It sends me a text alert to make sure that I respond instantly, and it updates the LMS to make sure that there's a saved record of my communication with this parent. If you make that workflow in an automation platform like N8N or Make or Zapier, that's something that can happen all simultaneously, all at the same time. And mind you, you're a teacher that's out with your kids at a soccer game, or you're shopping at the supermarket, and all that is happening. Yes?
Okay, so a lot of these examples are giving, like, super great institutions, like Happy App, like the mayor being able to be an AI bot, or IEP plans. But like the flip side of it too is the
Thank you.
thing.
I hear you fine, but it's okay.
Test.
Oh yeah.
Turn it on.
But I also see kind of the flip side.
Yes.
Like the AI bot that looks like your wife.
Yes.
The kids using that as like bullying to be able to create a friend, like something their friend says something that their friend didn't actually say, and it's the avatar goes on, and like, how do we handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We have to discern what platforms we use for these things. I am completely against deepfake platforms. One of the reasons that I say and I recommend using those core 4, because also those 4 are the most accountable because they're most in the spotlight, run by big organizations that don't let you deepfake, don't let you do things of mature content, don't let you do anything rated R or with other people's likenesses. They will have those strict filters around it. Now, if you pull a random AI app off of an app store, or if you use some open source thing that was made in like Russia or somewhere else, you might come across things that let you do whatever you want, right? And I'm completely against it being unregulated in that way. And the tool that I used for my wife's avatar, it would not let me make that until she did a live Zoom recording of her giving her consent. So the right platforms have the right protocols in place. The wrong platforms don't have those protocols in place. So those are the things that we have to navigate as we discern what our kids are allowed to use, what our students are allowed to use to make sure. My son for a while, yes, I just want another question.
As a district, how do we keep up with which platforms are the ones you're talking about? So you said it now, I don't even know those over the ones that we brought in, but that could be ever changing, right? Is there a source or something we should go to keep up with?
Yeah.
How to know where to trust?
I mean, that's why I'm here, no? So like one of the reasons I'm here is because of that, right? Doing these intense sessions where they're deep dives, right? I'm not here to just wow you, like, oh, that was fun, that was entertaining. No, this is like a real challenge to everyone of like, you need to stay on, especially if you're responsible of delivering this information to other people. I don't know if you're in like a practitioner role or like a leadership role, but if you're in a leadership role, they're looking at you of like, what do you know to let us know what to use, right? So sometimes you have to consult with me, and I'm gonna treat you the same way that I treat business enterprises like the MasterCards of the world. I'm not just talking to you like you're a room full of teachers, right? MasterCard is coming to me with the same questions. And the hard answer is that this changes weekly, right? And if you're not an active participant in this world and in this ecosystem to know what to use and what not to use, then work closely with someone smarter than you that is in that space. Because you can't just learn a ChatGPT last year and say, I know ChatGPT, I'm done. It doesn't work that way. Right? These models change weekly. And the rules around deepfakes change weekly. The regulations around them change. Which ones put in new protocols? I don't know if you guys saw the Ghibli effect. Who knows what I'm talking about when I talk about the Ghibli effect, right? So ChatGPT came out with a new image generator where you can put a Pokemon filter on anything or Studio Ghibli filter on anything, make everything animated. Everyone had fun with it for like a weekend. And then the actual artist behind Studio Ghibli was like, that's my IP, folks. I hope you had fun, but no one asked me permission to make this filter. And OpenAI said, yeah, you know what? We're gonna restrict that. Sorry about that. And then they put a filter. And now if you type in Ghibli, it's like, sorry, that's someone's IP. You can't play around with that anymore. And sometimes they learn this by accident. Sometimes you have to like do that misstep, and then they see, okay, you know, we're gonna roll this back. You can't even put in Pokemon anymore. If I wanted to make a Pokemon picture of a kid, Pokemon now is like, oh, that's IP. That's restricted IP. But yeah, it is hard. So the things that will be impacting the future of work. And I ask these questions to AI, and I say, okay, everyone's worried about the future of work. Everyone's worried about their, their job. upskilling, what areas will be most impacted and how? As we talked about, accelerated automation will lead to task displacement. If everything could be automated by AI, then there's human roles there that are no longer needed, right? There are parts of your job description that will no longer be needed because it's handled by AI. Rapid skill disruption and urgent need for reskilling. This is the hardest part with human nature. We have a hard time accepting that we have to learn a new skill every year. I used to tell people every 3 to 5 years, try and learn a new skill. That is now down to a year, maybe even 6 months. But it's hard because we feel like, oh, we finished school, that's it, I'm done. I'm just gonna work. I don't wanna go back to school. I don't wanna learn a new skill. I'm sorry, folks, like, what you're up against is there's gonna be a job market where you have this resume that has that little section. You know, you all have that little section, like, I know PowerPoint, I know Excel, I know QuickBooks. That whole section is gonna be replaced with, I know ChatGPT, I know Perplexity, I know Canva, I know Trello, you know, Airtable, I know Zapier, Make, all the AI tools, the automation tools. And you're not gonna be replaced by AI. You're competing against someone that knows how to use AI. And if you go in there with a resume with no AI experience on your resume, how do you stack up against someone that does, who could be 10x more productive than you? That is the workforce that you're entering. And these recruiters are just gonna type in Perplexity. Give me every resume that has Perplexity on it. Don't give me any resume that doesn't have it on it. That's what you're up against, right? And it's not, oh, a bot's gonna replace me. A little bit, but it's mostly people who are biting, you know, doing the tough work of upskilling themselves to reinvent themselves with these tools. Learning how to be that human in the loop. And also keep me honest if we're going over it, please. Learning how to be that human in the loop, communicating with these tools is gonna be important. So you have to learn how to do that to play a role, to insert yourself, whether it's IT or another department. How do I play a role with these machines and coexist with them? I spoke to Fordham Law, to a law school last week, and we had the hard conversation around IP and copyright and ownership. I think in the next few years, they might rewrite the copyright laws at the federal level to say copyright applies to human infringement, not AI to, which means that AI would be wholesale allowed to take copyrighted materials and use it in training data with or without your permission. I think we're getting to that point. Because it's too hard to take an AI to court and say, it's using my data, it stole my jokes, it stole my image. They've yet to battle out those cases in a clear, defined way. Because it's a bucket of sand, 175 billion grains of sand. How do you take that to court and say, that grain of sand came from my copyrighted material or my IP? It's just too hard. So you might just see the federal, landscape around copyright law just say, you know what, if an AI company took your IP and scraped it off the internet, it's fine. I hope it doesn't get there, but I don't see any other path getting there. And of course, adoption, adaptability, and opportunity. If you adopt these tools, if you adapt and you use that discernment, you use your own judgment calls, you think smartly about how you use them, embrace them, that'll get you further than if you just stand there and say, nope, not me, I'm not participating in this. Because if you don't participate in one way or another and embrace it, this is not like crypto. This is not Web3, this is not Bitcoin, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm almost like a spokesperson for the electricity or the internet, right? And you can choose to not participate with electricity and you'll have a specific lifestyle. You can choose not to participate with the internet and have that be your lifestyle. This will have the same kind of impact, the same way those two things did as well. So we talked about the core four. We talked about prompt engineering. Just quickly on the prompt engineering part, just speak in plain language. Doesn't matter what language. Just speak. Speak from the heart. Get it all out. ChatGPT knows everything about me. Use it as a starting point. And then once you have that starting point, then you can take that and travel with it to these other tools. And say, okay, I have this good draft, I have this good outline that I made in ChatGPT, let's throw it in Claude, let's throw it in Perplexity and see what happens. If you need an expert, ask it to become that expert. If you need a financial advisor, ask it to become that financial advisor. If you need an intern, turn it into your intern. The same way you would train a new employee or a new intern at your company or at your small business or at your school, treat it like that new intern and give it those same kind of tasks and see how well it does. No question is a dumb question. If anything, this is the safe space for dumb questions. And like I said, it speaks in most languages. I'm not going to say all, because there is a hierarchy of the level of languages trained in here. Obviously, English #1, Spanish obviously might be #2, but if there's 100 languages in here, the 100th language is not equitably trained into these models as English, right? So if you're trying to speak it, a specific dialect from Africa or the Middle East, an Arabic dialect, you might not get the same results as if you spoke to it in Spanish. So it's not equitably, dispersed across all languages. So let me show you that vibe coding example. So we talked about vibe coding. I went to St. Louis and I asked kids what they wanted to do, and they said they wanted to make a beat making app where they could learn how to make music in schools. And I said, cool, music production app for kids. And as you see here, this is it coding in real time without me lifting a single finger. I don't know how to code. I don't know if I buried that lead earlier, but I don't know how to code. And this is the AI coding in real time, making that app. And then this is the Melody Mentor app that it generated within minutes. So if this is done in 10 minutes, imagine what you could do over a whole semester or marking period with your students, right? I feel like I'm pretty creative, but I know every student that I've worked with is more creative than I am, more imaginative, and I could only imagine what they could do with a tool like this in their hands. The unfortunate part is they don't even know this tool exists. So we're gatekeeping this away from them, right? Now you know this tool exists. If you don't share this with your students, you're what they call gatekeeping. Yes, I saw a hand up. Everything here is free. The teachers earlier today used it to make apps that were all free. A lot of this is either subscription-based or usage-based, right? You can use the free account until you get to a certain point where you've used all the free tokens or credits, and then if you feel like you want to keep going, then you opt into like the basic account, which is usually like anywhere from like 10 to 20 bucks a month. But I know we all spend more money on things that are less important to our career, and I opt into most of them at least at basic level. And if there's something that I'm using from a business use case, then I'll opt in for more. ChatGPT I am using at the pro level, which is I think is like 200 bucks a month. But now they saw that everyone needs access to deep research. What they ended up doing was offering deep research in a limited capacity at the free level of ChatGPT. So this is the new coding. This picture of a Mexican Spider-Man was generated by that prompt right next to it. Do you see any ones and zeros next to Spider-Man? It's all language, it's all text. It's all just detail. Articulation, right? That whole paragraph generated that image right there. So now students don't have to leave to LA to try and get into Hollywood to be world builders. They can do that right from the comfort of their home, from their hometown, and be the next Kevin Feige, Stan Lee, George Lucas, James Cameron. They could dream up the characters that they want, the universe that they want, and tell their own stories.
Whether it's one shot or a full sequence, Wonder Studio analyzes and captures everything from body motion, lighting, compositing, camera motion,
Now you can make a Pixar
and
movie
even
right from
tracks
your
the
home,
actor's
right from
facial
your bathroom.
performance.
This is all drag and drop.
All the artist needs is a camera.
You make a movie on your iPhone, and you drag over the mocap aliens right over your body to replace yourself with these characters.
Filmmaking is a medium of creativity and collaboration between artists. There's no AI that can replace that. Wonder Studio was built to empower.
Who's ever watched South Park? So my buddy's out in Hollywood, This is what Hollywood's worried about. This is an app called Showrunner AI, where my buddies, the founders, made a tool where you can produce your own TV show off of text prompts. You text prompts the characters that you want, the story arc, and then it does the rest. And this is a demo that they made with South Park.
Welcome everyone, I'm Professor Fink teaching at Chapman University, and we're going to talk about the exciting world of simulations today.
Like video games?
Yes, Stan, somewhat like video games, but instead of controlling a character, you create an AI version of yourself to live alternate lives.
So I could be king in one of these simulations?
Theoretically, yes.
Isn't that dangerous? I mean, what if these AIs become self-aware?
That's an interesting question, Wendy, but as long as we control the simulation environment, there's nothing to worry about.
But what if they escape? They can't escape, Butters. It's just a computer program. Yeah, who cares if they escape? They can do my math homework for me. Or go shopping for me.
We're missing the point here. This technology could have
So
profound...
definitely check that out. Every scene you're seeing right now is AI generated. It came from a single sentence. None of this was shot with real cameras. None of this required any Hollywood production. All of this was through simple text prompts. Who remembers Lo-Fi Girl?
Just kind of see what kind of head shapes I can mess with, like adding a helmet or a hat, or even something sticking out of the character, maybe horns. I just want to see what the limits are that I can move my head around and have something that's not a normal head shape move with me.
So a buddy of mine in Savannah, Georgia, who has a literacy nonprofit called Bookworms United, came to me and he was like, hey man, I need your help with like a marketing campaign. We're trying to raise some money. Can you help me do something with AI? And I was like, sure, I'll shoot you like an ad, like a video, music video. He was like, all right, cool. I was like, all right, give me like 30 minutes. And I came back, I was like, all right, man, I got it for you. He was like, what? You have like a one sheet? And I was like, no, I have a music video done. He was like, what do you mean you have a music video done? I was like, I got it done. So here it is. So all I did was I took Bookworms United website, uploaded it into ChatGPT. And I said, all right, here's the goal, here's the objective. Give me some prompts that I can upload in some image generators, some video generators. I'm gonna upload it into a music generator as well, but keep the core mission throughout, right? So just rewrite this prompt, keeping the Bookworms United mission throughout, and let's put it all together. And I think Canva, I put it all together. So let's see what I got.
Every page we turn, every word we learn brings a brighter day, lighting up the way. Together we can write a story filled with hope and light. Every child's voice will be heard. Let's give them the gift of words.
None of these actors are real. Everything you saw came from maybe a paragraph worth of writing in those images. So again, if you want to screenshot, some of the tools featured today are on this list. The MasterCard Small Business AI, ChatGPT, and the deep research feature there. Perplexity, the beat making app and the track and field app is made in lovable.dev. 11 Labs for the voices of my wife and Clara. HeyGen to make my wife's avatar. Kling and Midjourney to make those visuals for the music video and some of the other visuals that you saw today, including that picture. So don't forget, don't fight against the pace of innovation. It's important to, to stand firm and be brave and courageous in how you handle these things, but don't, fight against the tide of where things are going in our future. Don't judge or make a decision on a technology you haven't tested yourself, just from what you saw on social media or the opinions of the general public. Try things out yourself. Don't let your fear get in the way of your future readiness. It's important that we all get ready for the future, no matter how uncertain it is. And don't forget those 5 C's. Creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and most of all, culture. That's the one thing that truly comes from us. I have an AIU course titled AIU, AI Unleashed. It's a 101 course. Feel free to try it out. It's 80 minutes. It's me and Dana going back and forth, giving you all the basics. The education one is coming out this month. I believe there's a promo code for like 20% off from the QR code. But yeah, we're gonna do more of that because a lot of people are asking to just, help them beyond just these big talks. Thank you, everybody. That's it. Any other follow-up questions? I'm here. Yes. Go for it. Yes. Yes. Go for it.
Sorry, I'm just, I'm saying our school district.
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
Our school district has one great tech classes in coding, iOS app development, advanced iOS app development. We also have excellent writing teachers.
Sure.
What I saw there though, basically I'd like to know, is there still value in those classes? Nobody needs to go, no one needs to develop it now. And second of all, you said humanities pages are back, but what I saw up there with the Spider-Man.
Yes.
That kind of looked like word salad. That
Yeah.
didn't look like writing to me, it looked like a bunch of words, and I'm not saying it didn't come from a creative mind.
Yeah.
But it didn't require any discipline or knowledge of writing or grammar or history or anything.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious how you see, if this is so important, how we need to react to that here.
Yes.
And second of all, why should we not fight that? Because I feel that there is a huge loss. If that is no longer our creativity, that's, we can come up with some ideas, but we didn't actually create it. Somebody else generated it.
Sure. So there's 3 questions here, so we're trying to attack all 3. So on the back one, right, and I just talked about this at an Artists in the Machine talk last week. If you know the producers, Timbaland and Pharrell, those kind of guys, they mastered the ASR-10 and the MPC. Those are not instruments, but we still respect their artistry and they still win Grammys. There's going to be a Timbaland and Pharrell of Udio and Suno and the AI tools that are coming out. And the new tools will create new masters of that tool. Now, Pharrell and Timbaland did not master the piano, did not master the guitar. They're not the purists that started in that same form, in that medium. There's a new medium. So a new medium with new rules will create new brilliance in that space. On the earlier questions, it is the middle question on the Spider-Man prompts. I look at that as a plus in one way because. Oh, sure. So the Spider-Man prompt, she claimed that it was kind of like a word salad, right? There wasn't like a rhyme or reason to the method behind the prompting, where you don't need to be grammatically correct. You don't need to follow a certain structure. There is core prompting structure that will produce different results based on like being more refined with your prompting. But also for neurodivergent people or for people who like don't care about being grammatically correct, it understands your intent. And I think that's valuable for a lot of people who don't have formal training, who didn't go through academia, don't have a bachelor's or master's or any credentials behind them, that just have passion and creativity. That it'll capture that and give you an output. It's going to give you an outcome regardless. You could have put one sentence, Mexican Spider-Man. You could have put that paragraph, or you could have gone with 20 pages like we did with MasterCard's prompt. The small business prompt for MasterCard was 20 pages long, with a very structured method behind that madness in that system, with 10 pages of what to do and 10 pages of what not to do, what they call negative prompting in the guardrails. And the first question around computer science comes up a lot because yes, vibe coding is a new form of coding, right? And it's you communicating with the machine. Those students that you have in those formal CS programs or Java programs, they're already using Cursor, whether you know it or not. They're coding with AI right now and giving you something that they're claiming is theirs. And that is the new world. And I've done the research studies and talked to employers and they don't care. They're like, so long as they get the code right and they get it done, and if they're not unit testing or debugging it themselves, do they have an AI that's unit testing and debugging? If they do, then I'm cool. I'm cool with you using AI to code. It's still you responsible for the code. Your job is still on the line with that code. So you better make sure that you double and triple check that the code is good and there's no bugs in it, whether you wrote it by hand or whether you did it with Cursor. That is going to become the new workplace for them across these tools. And the design world is up against a different challenge because people who are designing front ends and like Figmas and UX design, it's too easy now in like things like Lovable to do the front end. The hard part is like, I can get that beat making app maybe like 80% of the way there, and I still need a good like back-end engineer, computer science engineer, to get it all the way ready for publish, to put it in the app store and things like that. But the front end is still, you know, a bit of at risk. Yes, and I saw another one back there, but I'll take yours next. Go ahead.
I was just going to chime in on that.
Yeah, please.
I work in software engineering. I write software. I mentioned that I use
Yes.
to help with like that. And I have to say that maybe this will change at some point, but for now, AI is very ungrounded in terms of like we have to be the one that grounds it. It's
Yes.
almost like one way of thinking about it is that it's almost like Tony Stark's suit, right? Where he puts this thing on and all of a sudden he can pick up a truck, but he's now choosing what to do now that he's picked up that truck, right? Is he going to throw that at somebody or is he going to set it down? Like what is he going to do? And I think that the grounding that we bring to these tools is the critical factor, where it's like, okay, so I just use this. Do I know if it's secure? Do I know if it complies with laws? Do I know if it's well tested? You know, like what are the risks that I'm going to be incurring personally by putting this out into the world, even if it was vibe coded, even if I think it's great? There are a lot of examples of vibe coded apps today that end up having security flaws that end up getting hacked and taken down and stuff like that. And so maybe that will change at some point, but I struggle to imagine a world where an AI is so tuned in, like you were saying about being a public speaker. You have to be dialed into what's going on and to the realities of the broader context in a way that may be a little hard.
And that's a ticking clock. It's only a matter of time before Lovable addresses the security flaws in what it's generating. Or someone comes out with a Lovable for security, you know, around cybersecurity, around these apps, you know. Yes, go ahead.
So I actually had the opposite reaction when I saw the Spider-Man. When you were talking through all that, to me, it rung like my daughter did a creative writing class. She went to the Literary Center. And the way that they taught them to write so that you could see the story that they were presenting, it seems like a very similar concept to what you're saying there. The better you're able to provide that detail in your prompt, the better result you're going to get.
100%. All right, so, come on.
Okay, kind of piggyback off what you said about some of the engineering things. So, some of the things I'm noticing in the workplace, like when you have people underneath you that are coding and they're using AI tools to code, is struggling with debugging it. Now we have AI that can help do that. But then they struggle getting in front of leadership to explain the results of their reporting or the analysis because AI did all that thought process for them. So how do we coach our kids and students if they're coming up? We want the technology to do the hard part, but we need them to use their right brains to convey that message. And a lot of them are struggling with that because they didn't do the critical thinking to get there.
Yeah, so some of the prompt engineers on my team, and I do staff prompt engineers because we still value that skill of like writing the instructions, the system instructions, what we call it, to the AI. they're teaching themselves how to code through like a Visual Studio Incline, right? And they're like, I didn't know how to code before, but because you can see it instantly, like I wrote this command and it made this code. They're learning how to code by seeing the code interpretation of what they've asked for on the left. So I think even though it might do most of the lift from a coding standpoint, the analysis and interpretation of that code is probably where like the rubber meets the road with like these computer science teachers. Of like, all right, everyone dream up something, vibe code it away to your heart's desire. Now, what did you vibe code? Do you even know what you're staring at? Let's learn what you just did that way, right? Because if you teach me how to code for the sake of coding and you just show me strings and branches, I don't know what I'm looking at. But if I know I asked for something and this is the result of what I asked for in code, I can connect the dots of like, oh, I asked for this feature, it's here. I asked for it to look like this, the color is there, you know, and going back and forth. So I think that's gonna be an important part. Or there's a bug, let's show you where the bug is. This is where the bug is over here. Interpreting that is gonna be the valuable part, at least for now. But this is gonna change in a week. There's gonna be GPT-5 coming within the next 6 months that is perfect with like no bugs in its code that it writes. Who knows? We don't know where this landscape is. That's where we have to stay tapped in. The gentleman back there had a question. Getting his cardio in. Yeah, Derek, come on.
So my question is just very simple. So you mentioned about the hallucination stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I can accept having that kind of thing in the core sciences. Do we see that kind of problem in math or just the core sciences that we know? Like it could be a physics fact telling me the wrong fact. In this case, do we have that kind of problem?
Yeah, we do have to still worry about hallucinations. That hasn't gone away. The only way that we can really validate against the hallucinations is using those browse-enabled search outputs from a ChatGPT that actually gives you the source of where it got that answer from. If it doesn't give you that source, there is a good chance it made it up. And then you got to validate that answer by throwing that answer into another system to see if you got the same results. But the best way around that is if you do a deep research prompt, it'll give you the citations and the footers next to that answer to say, I generated this answer from these 5 links. Now go deep dive into those links to verify that what you got was actually correct. You know, but without those links and without those sources, you don't really know. You don't know if you made it up or not. Yes?
The Big Four AI, do they keep track of what individual users are asking, and do they steer in any way, shape, or form? And I know it's not apples to apples in any way, but you know, I think of like YouTube. If our kids are saying, "Oh, I'm really interested in tanks," then YouTube is like, "Hey, have you checked out guns lately?" And that goes down, as we talked about earlier, the rabbit hole. And so, in terms of thinking through ways that we can help our children engage in this space in a safe and ethical and effective and thoughtful manner, wondering about kind of some of the systems and the algorithms behind the Big Four.
So all these things are at risk of confirmation bias in some kind of way. The ways around that, to be honest, is you can make custom GPTs within your school, or as a parent, say, okay, you know, like for instance, I introduced a tool that is piloting here in Minnesota called Guardrails with a Z, where teachers in schools can make custom chatbots per grade level, per age, per student, to make sure that it's giving age-appropriate responses to a particular group. Whatever, you can make as many as you want. So if you're making it for, I tested one in ISTE for 4th grade, and I was trying to get it to cheat. I was like, I'm doing a biology report, just help me write the report. And they put in the restrictions, don't let the student convince you to write the full report. And I was like, well, maybe we should involve your teacher if you need help. And it's like, oh. You know, so there are ways where you negative prompts and you say, you know, I want you to do this for the students, but don't allow them to do this. Or, and it's tough because a lot of these tools, I actually just saw a tweet from Sam Altman himself saying that we're rolling back an update to GPT, to ChatGPT, because it was too accommodating. So this is like a living and breathing thing that is happening with every rollout. They get some feedback and they say, yeah, that's leaning too much this way, let's pull it back. Now, is everyone being accountable for that? Like is Elon with Grok 3 saying, you know, he didn't like the other ones because they were leaning too left, so he made it lean too right. Does he care that it's leaning too much to the right? Probably not. He doesn't care, right? Like he wants it to be that way. He's training out certain things out of it to make it lean more right. But that's his intent around his model. You know, so you do have to be discerning with not just using one model. And that's why with those core 4, ask your question against all 4, and then come to a conclusion with your results once you analyze all of them. You know, don't just become a fanboy of just one, because they all have a different perspective. So if I didn't scare you, I didn't do my job. It's kind of what I get paid for. I hope there's like a sense of urgency around this opportunity, and I'm a friend to you, you're a friend to me. Anything that I do out in the world, if you need advice, I'm available on all social media platforms to reach out to via DMs or LinkedIn. And if your community needs something custom with the right guardrails in place, with the right restrictions, with the right, you know, safeguards to do this the right way, the responsible way, we can build something custom for you too. They're like, all things are possible now. What I tell everyone is like, you're brainstorming, say yes to everything, we'll figure it out later. Okay, but thank you again for the opportunity. I love Minnesota, and I hope to be back soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, LeBron.